I want to show you the core of the original structure going back to, let's say, the 1st century BC. These are the Republican baths, and they are known as the Terme Taurine, maybe applying eventually to the family of Socialized Taurus. But what you have here is a core that is Republican in date. Come on down into the pool with me, and eventually it's going to have an imperial portion, which is magnificent. After the port of Civitavecchia, Centum Cellae is going to be built up by Trajan. But this is that original core that's going to be more lavishly decorated with marble. So I could sit here in a very shallow pool and I could relax, and I have the hot water coming in right here. What makes these baths so extraordinary is that you have natural springs from which there came out hot water, medicinal, mineral-rich water, about 47 degrees Celsius, boiling hot water, so you didn't need to stoke the fires for most of the rooms. You had hot water for free, as you have at Baia down in the Bay of Pozzuoli. So here's an example of something that's very popular, very much recognized and talked about in the ancient sources, and I could sit right here and I could soak, and if I'm not feeling well, I am told by the doctors that the minerals in this water will make me feel better, and the water is gushing out. If you come real close, you can see it's lined with this calcepesto. So this is waterproof cement, and this is large, giving us an idea of just how many people are coming here. And if you step up, you have along the sides here a series of small plunge pools. So if I don't want to go in the big pool, I can go into one of these small tubs, and I can walk my way into the next room and the next room and so on. So it's really a great experience. And then what we see, the walls of Opus Reticulatum, we have our Republican walls. We see eventually over to this side, fired brick. So we're getting into the massive upgrade of the 2nd century in the time of Hadrian. And over here, we have a thank offering. A certain freedman of Hadrian is saying in Greek, "Thanks very much to the nymphs of the Nymphaeum, of the spring, that brought water to this archaeological site. The nymphs healed this person. Here is the thank offering, this in the time of Hadrian." Today I'm going to take you on a tour of a wonderful site, this bath complex, located a few miles inland and uphill from Civitavecchia, which was built up by Trajan, known as Centum Cellae, one of Rome's largest ports. Now the baths represent a countryside spa, fed by natural sulfurous waters as hot as 47 degrees Celsius, that's 116 degrees Fahrenheit. This meant that the usual Pryfernium system for heating the baths was unnecessary, and the medicinal qualities of the water were a further attraction to visitors. Now why is it called the Taurine Baths? Well, the Roman poet Rutilius Numantianus says, in the 5th century, they're the Taurine Baths because of a local tradition, that a bull struck the ground from which the waters emanated. And this bull was surely a god in disguise, probably Jupiter. Others point to the Roman Republican Augustan family of the Statilii, namely Statilius Taurus, as the origin of the name, although there is no archaeological evidence for it. What we do have is a complex of the Republican period with Opus Incertum and Opus Reticulatum walls that was eventually expanded, what is commonly known as the Trajanic Baths. However, brick stamps inform us that it was Hadrianic era brick stamps, Opus Sestatium, built with a contiguous library and hospitalium and storage facilities. Let's explore this fascinating complex and its well-preserved features. First of all, let's look at the spring around which the entire bath complex was focused. At the base of the Imperial period caldarium space, we can see exactly where the scalding hot water arrived into the complex. Now, originating from springs at a higher elevation, the Romans created a concrete channel leading the water directly into the complex. And it's utterly fascinating that we can walk around this site, we can see this channel, and in fact, I'm told by locals that you could take baths with those waters on this archaeological site as late as the 1980s. We can explore the Republican complex. We can admire from the exterior the peristyle hall and cubiculum chambers. Inside, we have this impressive caldarium hall, And next to it is the deeper tub of the Frigidarium Hall. Next to the Caldarium space, we have the Tepidarium Hall with its basin lined with marble. And then just down this hall, we can make our way to the round Laconicum room. This dry sauna is beautifully preserved still today. Let's take a look at the components of the Imperial Baths. Outside, we've seen the unheated outdoor pool. Inside, we have this large Tepidarium hall. This is the niche for a fountain. You can see the hole where the water would enter. And then here we have this portion of opus sectile floor.
Right here under the Caldarium, looks like a slave corridor, but actually lined with lime. Here's where the hot water was passing through, going to the various chambers of the Caldarium spaces. Incredible amounts of water, hot boiling water, coming here, being used for free. And that's what allows them ultimately to have a popular spot and build this incredible architecture of the 2nd century AD in use for centuries. In fact, some of the water was still flowing here even in the 1980s. Who knows, maybe in the future, as the site is now being restored, the water will flow once again for visitors.
There's a massive Caldarium hall. The windows were once lined with window panes. Now let's take a tour of this sprawling imperial complex, standing here from the viewpoint of the large cistern with part of its round wall still visible. We're walking through one of the main corridors. Off to the left is the round wall of the large cistern through which you'd have to have cold water to regulate the temperature of the hot water, leading off into various rooms, cold, tepid, and boiling hot. So we can see that multiple stories are still preserved. Off to our left is that outdoor swimming pool or frigidarium space. But we're going to pass through, obviously, all this Hadrianic era brick, thanks to the brick stamps that have been found here. And we're going to make our way into the Tepidarium Hall. And this vaulting has not been reconstructed. It's still intact. There would have been a slightly heated pool. That window space would have been filled with glass panes to trap the heat. Pivoting over past that niche, which had a fountain. So opus sectile pavement still preserved. And we're making our way forward, but just admiring the height. There aren't that many bath complexes in the Roman world that are so well preserved with all of its components, but it really is a great opportunity for us to be able to explore these various facilities. And we're going to make our way to the Caldarium Hall, imagining ourselves as guests, as people that want to enjoy the medicinal properties of this natural spring water. Here's our large Caldarium space. So you've taken something that was in vogue in the Republican period and you've scaled it up in the Trajanic, Hadrianic period. Why? Because you have the scaling up of Centum Cellae under Trajan. So these baths are going to accommodate more guests. Here's a little Praefurnium area, so they are stoking a fire in this particular hall right here. But by and large, the heat is free from the incredible properties of the natural springs.
We're walking past the library, and you can see there are rooms for shops. You can see a 17th century farmhouse in the distance that sits on top of this complex, but it does give you an idea of just how magnificent the experience was in the imperial period. We have a cryptoporticus that was once lined with marble. And we have some of the mosaic floor that's in place as well. And at the end of this corridor, we have an impressive staircase lined with marble that stops with the construction of the farmhouse. But we can indeed see this was magnificent and once lined with marble. We continue to walk this way, and it is just one massive sprawling complex that's being recently uncovered. I think you're going to see a lot more restoration here for this complex. There's a ramp up there, all kinds of collapsed vaulting. Really is a spectacular site. And we're going to have warehouses here as well, so a lot of storage on site.
It's a really impressive sprawling complex. I think there's a lot more to investigate. There's a lot more to learn. And I think there's going to be a lot more to uncover. It reminds you of what you see in Centumcelle down below on the port, but also should remind you of what you see in places like Ostia Antica and Portus. So you have this incredible complex. You have a lot more to discover. You have warehouse structures. You have two main phases. We've seen the Republican baths. We've seen the Hadrianic baths. And of course, with the emperors, you're going to have a much larger complex. You have the library, you have a cryptoportico, we have pageantry, we have a hospitalium, a place to accommodate visitors. Today there are spaces and stages for a summer program, but here's a place that's largely unknown. Here's a place that's largely unvisited. It's an opportunity for you to go and explore. That's the beauty of Italy. That's the beauty of studying and learning about the ancient world. Most places are off the major tourist destinations, and that means most places are there for you to discover, to have an intimate experience with antiquity. So yes, there's so many bath complexes. There's bath complexes, the Imperial Thermae of Rome, but here we are in something that's contemporary with a first phase in the Republican period that lets us peer into that earlier time framework. It's sometimes so hard in Rome to get a sense of Republican times, but here you see it quite clearly with the addition literally right next door. This is what it is to explore Italy for me. There's always something new. There's always something that I want to see, that I take any opportunity to jump off the off-ramp of the highway and explore some site, kick myself, why haven't I been here sooner? But what is fascinating, what is fun to see is that there's a lot of restoration going on, a lot of investigation going on to famous sites all around Italy. It's a great opportunity to explore. And here again, we can see a portion of the Republican Baths. I encourage you to make the trip here. I encourage you to keep on exploring. And thanks for joining me. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Don't forget to like this video. Get back to me with ideas of other places that I can go and explore. And of course, you can travel with me in 2026 to Egypt, Jordan, and Eastern Sicily. Just go to unlocktrome.com.